In the 1980s, South Korea and North Korea had not yet been approved for membership in the UN. The African continent, which has the most votes in the UN, has been the site of an all-out diplomatic war between the two Koreas. Joining the UN requires the support of Africa, which has the largest number of votes. So in 1987, the North Korean and South Korean government sent its diplomats to Mogadishu, the capital of Somalia. The film starts from Mogadishu International Airport. Here bribers are allowed to enter the country through passport. Kang Tae-jin, an intelligence officer recently assigned to the South Korean embassy, is tasked with delivering gifts from the South Korean government to President Park. As no one from the embassy came to pick him up, he was smoking and waiting. He uses some techniques he knows to control his anger. Sometime after that he meets the ambassador in Somalia, Han Shin-sung. He apologizes for not coming to pick him up. If he is late for a meeting with the president, he immediately takes gifts. It contains booze and some books. Shin-sung left the place, telling him to go to the taxi. Shin-sung and his secretary, Gang Soo-chol, also go to the presidential palace. Gang Soo-chol doesn't like the fact that Kang, who is younger than her, is her superior. Due to this, from time to time there will be a little resentment between them. On their way, rebels intercepted the ambassador and looted the gifts. They also sprayed his car with bullets. So the two run to the president's house as the time for the president's meeting will pass. They both miss the meeting by 15 minutes. An audience with the president is thus denied. As Shin-sung tries to explain their delay, he sees North Korean ambassador Rim Yong-soo being led into a meeting room. Shin-sung believes that Somalia's support for North Korea will prevent South Korea from joining the UN. Shin-sung initially believes that Rim Yong-soo is the mastermind of the robbery, but we learn that Tae Jun-ki, an intelligence officer at the North Korean embassy, bribed the rebels to rob Shin-seong. Knowing what happened, Rim Yong-soo tells Tae Jun-ki that it was a shameless act and unhelpful and possibly harmful to North Korean efforts. Gang Soo-chol says that they prevented the presidential meeting because the information we know is someone tipped off a rebel. Kang misunderstands this and an argument ensues between them. Kang Tae-jin reveals to Shin-sung that he bribed a Western journalist with a packet of cigarettes. Photographs depicting insurgents using North Korean-made firearms suggest that North Korea is supplying arms to the Somali government and insurgents. When Shin-sung questions this, Kang Tae-jin dismisses her concerns, saying that if the photos are released, the Somali government will condemn North Korea even if it does not ultimately claim responsibility for the weapons. The next day, they meet with the Somali foreign minister at the hotel to gain the president's trust, and Shin-sung shows photos of North Korea supplying the rebel with weapons via Ethiopia. However, the minister is unconcerned and asks for a bribe of $50,000 for UN membership. Disgusted, Shin-sung leaves the meeting. Then North Korean ambassador Rim is seen moving gifts to the minister's car. Shin-sung confronts him about the earlier robbery. The latter countered that the South was no better at framing the North to supply arms to the rebels. Before the two collide, shots ring out outside the hotel. The civil war has reached Mogadishu. Both the North and South Korean diplomats have been stuck in a hotel for hours as the Somali government imposed a lockdown on Mogadishu. Meanwhile at the South Korean embassy, Shin-sung's wife, Myung-hee, and the other diplomats are startled by the ringing of the bell as they pray for them. Salma, the ambassador's Somali driver, was badly injured and stumbled into the embassy. Gang Soo-chol takes him inside, but when he is laid on a bed, the general notices Salma's scarf bearing the insignia of Aidid's rebels. As the diplomats wonder what to do with him, fearing that he is actually a rebel, the police suddenly arrive and try to enter the compound. Shin-sung and Kang Tae-jin arrive just in time when Gang Soo stops them. They hold talks with them and send them away from here. Meanwhile, Salma escapes from the embassy and runs through the streets when the police catch him and kill him. The next day riots broke out in every part of Mogadishu. United Somalia Congress has sent their messages to all embassies. In it, it says that you should work with them to overthrow the Bear regime, and if you give arms to the Bear government, it will be considered as acting against Somalia, so it is your government's decision whether to help the Bear government or not to help the Somali government, and it will decide whether you are an enemy or a friend. Kang goes to the US embassy to inquire about its veracity. Shin-sung, fearing for Myung-hee's safety, tries to send her back to South Korea. The next day, all banks and travel agencies were closed so they couldn't get to South Korea. This leaves everyone stranded in Mogadishu. People besiege all embassies. Meanwhile they are burning all documents related to Somalia. Somalia's military finally retaliates with deadly force. Both North and South Korean diplomats sense that the situation had spiraled out of control. All power and communication networks were down, so their country could not be informed of what was happening here. They feel trapped alone in the civil war, so they decide to leave the country soon. Aidin and Kang Tae-jin arrive at the National Police Agency. He meets the chief and asks permission to get get police protection for their embassy. But he was rejected, so thinking diplomatically, "Your commissioner's name is in our embassy's main contact list, so if the rebels take over the embassy, you will also be trapped. So he asks us to take our money and provide security." In the end they agree to this. Next day, Chin Sung and Kang Tae-jin head to the airport, but they were turned away because they could not contact the domestic government in Seoul and lacked official documents for permission. Likewise, North Koreans who failed to go to the airport are sent back to their embassy. In desperation, Jun-ki calls the rebel leader he used earlier to rob the South Koreans for help in getting passes to the airport for North Korean diplomats. However, as soon as rebel leader Jun-ki steps into the compound, the rebels start beating the men, looting the entire place, and harassing the women. Jun-ki is severely beaten. However, he is spared once he pays the rebels well for the job. With the supplies almost gone, Rim orders Yong-soo to leave and go to the Chinese embassy for shelter. The insurgents move cautiously out of sight. Now they are coming to Chinese embassy by the rebels. After a while they are discovered by a child soldier who points their guns at them. Children in North Korean costumes pretend they've been shot and fall to the ground. Adults follow. The child soldiers shoot in the air. In triumph, they attract the attention of the rebels. They staggered out of the South Korean embassy as the North Koreans sped and stumbled in great fear. Left with no choice, Rim Yong-soo decides to ask the South Koreans for help. Even though Jun-ki is opposed to doing so at the risk of being labeled a traitor in Pyongyang, North Koreans scream for sanctuary within earshot of South Koreans. Rim asks to be let in as there are children and women. Chin Sung still thinks the North Koreans might use this as a ploy to spy on them and let them in. Just then, a group of insurgents approach the embassy, firing their guns wildly into the air. But the insurgents are repelled by a security detail Kang Tae-jin receives from the police. With the North Koreans now in danger, Chin Sung relents and opens the gate to let them in. They allow entry only after checking their IDs. The guards demand more money to provide security, because there are more people here. Next, when dinner was served, the North Koreans dared not touch the food for fear that the South Koreans might have mixed it with poison. Chin Sung swaps his bowl of rice with Rim Yong-soo and eats from it, proving that the food is not poisoned. Peacefully both parties begin to eat and share the food. Kang Tae-jin, sensing an opportunity to use the dinner as a ploy for propaganda, secretly takes pictures. The guards are leaving here due to non-payment. He steals diplomatic passports of North Koreans and prepares fake conversation certificates. Jun-ki notices this. There is a fight between them. Rim Yong-soo and Chin Sung walk in and tear the two apart, lamenting that political ideologies no longer matter, but sheer survival and working together to escape Mogadishu. With both the Americans and the Chinese already out of Mogadishu, they believe that civil war can only be avoided if both sides work together. Accordingly, the two ambassadors agreed to seek assistance from their other allies still in the city. Chin Sung decides to go to the Italian embassy and Rim Yong-soo to the Egyptian embassy. As planned, both parties leave in separate cars at dawn. They make their way through the war-torn city, narrowly escaping a group of rebels who are executing civilians. Jun-ki and Yong-soo arrive at the Egyptian embassy, only to find it full of refugees and no possible help. Meanwhile, at the Italian embassy, the Italian ambassador informs Chin Sung and Tae-jin that the South Koreans can join the Red Cross evacuation flight to Mombasa, Kenya, but the North Koreans cannot because Italy and North Korea do not have diplomatic relations. Chin Chung lies that he defected from the North and joined the South in order to take the North Koreans with him, but they can't prove this until they return. The Italian ambassador agrees and allows the entire party to board the plane, provided everyone arrives by 4 p.m. With this assurance, the Koreans make preparations for departure. Books, earthen bags and doors are used as makeshift shields around the cars to protect them in case of war on the way, and white flags, symbol of peace, are being prepared. They leave during Islamic prayer time. This allows the rebels to pass through the city unscathed while they pray. Dead bodies litter the streets. By now at 3:41 p.m. the Somali army had arrived at the roadblock. They have only a short time to go to the Italian embassy. Driving the lead car, tries to negotiate with the military commander, but Su Chul, driving the last car, tries to show his white flag out the window, but the white flag gets stuck and only Rai is visible. The guards mistook the pole for a gun and started firing at the Koreans, forcing them to retreat. The convoy, already in pursuit of the Somali army, is set on fire by marauding insurgents who throw a petrol bomb at their car. Now the rebels are also following them. Eventually, the Koreans come out of the Italian embassy. They take the white flag and run towards Italy embassy. As the insurgents open open fire on them. Suddenly, the street turns into a tense Mexican standoff. Koreans hide behind cars. Realizing where the Koreans are, the Somali army ceases fire, and Junki dies from bullet wounds he sustained as his car gets separated from the convoy and is about to arrive last. Italian troops open the gates and protect the Koreans. At the same time, the Somali army and insurgents are retreating from the area. Junki was buried inside the Italian embassy. The next day, the Italian government arranged a temporary ceasefire so that everyone could get to the airport safely. The Koreans board a plane and head to Mombasa as promised by the Italians. As the plane lands, Chin Xiong realizes that both sides have separate agents waiting to intercept their respective groups. Despite working together to survive in Somalia, Rim Yong-soo and Shin Seung decide they can't see each other because the two countries don't trust their experiences, instead sending them to their respective military courts. As the passengers exit the plane, the ambassadors bid farewell to each other and immediately split into their original groups to join their respective delegations. With one last look at each other, the ambassadors board their respective buses and head in opposite directions. The movie ends with this. Please like and subscribe, it will be a big support for channel. I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching.